Okay, I'm here tonight with the family from that I've been staying with, visiting the mounds, and just going to ask them a few questions. But I want to introduce Rooster. Rooster, how are you doing, Rooster? Rooster's a new buddy. We became friends this morning, and he is a mixed healer. And this is Meagan. She is the curator at the museum at the mounds, and she was the one that filmed me catching the snake in the mounds. This is her husband Todd, and so Meagan works at the mounds and takes care of the museum and the mounds. And so, um, what's it like working at the mounds? Oh.
Working at the mounds is a gift from the Lord. He gave me that job. I'm thankful for it. The ability to share history with the public and be in nature and take care of these artifacts and just get to talk with people. That was how, our relationship began, just, having conversations about history, and it always opens doors for growth, for myself, for the visitor. It's a treasure. So I value it. I don't take any day that I work out there for granted. It's a gift.
So did you grow up in this area? Did you know about the mounds before you started working there, or did you start learning about the mounds as the job became available?
That is correct. Yeah. So the latter. So I was a part of the Indian education program as a child, as a student in Lawrence County schools. But the museum wasn't established until the early 1990s. And so that was by the time I got into high school, and that, my role in the Indian education program wasn't as active anymore by the time I got into high school age. So my knowledge about the mounds didn't really begin until my daughter started running cross country. And the 5K course that we have at Oakville Indian Mounds is the beginning of my relationship with Oakville. That we would be out there hosting races and helping course monitoring, and Todd did awards ceremonies and different things. And so anyway, that began the relationship with the mounds, and then that's what led to the job, was that I had established positive relationships with the staff, and I was trusted, and they knew I cared about the property and was passionate about history, and so it just was a natural fit. But the job creation for me, so my title there is education coordinator. So I primarily work with students, and then just educating the public in general on the history of the mounds. But the archaeologist on staff, Anna Mulliken, she began my deep interest in the history of the property with the literature that she shared with me, the primary source documents about the archaeological digs that have been done out there. It's fascinating. And she just put all this stuff in my lap and said, enjoy and read.
Wow.
And so the reading led to knowledge. Yeah.
Wow. That's awesome. Mm-hmm. And so this is the family that I've been staying with while I've been here. They've been very helpful. They introduced me to Butch Walker, and his local historian, and so it's been wonderful. And Todd is a librarian at the school in Decatur.
Yes, sir. Walter Jackson Elementary.
Okay, and so one of the things that Todd does is has some interesting stories and knowledge about some ghost stories in that local area.
Yes, sir. I'm really blessed to be able to tell my kids at school some fun stories, and I was able to give Stella and Sage and some other kids jump scares as they were growing up a little bit. One of my favorite, I'd call this an Alabama folk tale. The story about some guy, some unnamed guy, I don't really know who it was, that lost his toe, his big toe, and a hungry young kid found it and kind of jumped to the end. They had it to eat one night, the little boy and his family, and later that night, the original owner of the toe comes looking and getting closer until finally I reach out and I grab them and say, "Who's got my toe?" So the big toe.
I've heard that story.
You've heard
Yeah,
that.
I've heard that.
The reason I call it an Alabama folktale, I think Charles Kramer. I'd have to go look his name up, but he was a folklorist from up north. Came to Alabama, wrote "Stars Falling on Alabama," some other stuff. So I've seen that story in a lot of Alabama folklore books, but yeah, there's versions of it. Like in England, there's the Golden Arm, which is a similar story where someone's missing a body part, comes and get them. But growing up, one of my heroes was Catherine Tucker Wyndham, and she was a reporter that went around researching local ghost stories. Not really anything like the Big Toe, which is more folklore. These ghost stories that she tells all occurred in real historical places. They got some documentation. There's no real scientific explanation for why any of these things happen. Supernatural, maybe paranormal. But it wasn't only how she wrote them, but when you got to see her live, it's like she was right there. I got to read her stuff growing up, and when I was in Tennessee, of all places, I got to see her live. And
wow.
She was, she was probably 80, maybe 90 years old, but she had just as much energy as, a 10-year-old little girl. She was very spry, like my own grandmother that passed away a few years ago. I used to see her in the gym every day with me. I mean, they don't make grandmothers like that anymore. I was blessed to have a grandmother like that and to also see Miss Tucker Wyndham. But here in Alabama, growing up, one of my favorite stories from this book came from Pickens County. They were really proud of their courthouse in Pickens County. I believe, if I remember correctly, the original courthouse had been burned. Something happened to it. So the citizens, they raised the money. They built their new courthouse, and something burned it down again. And so they blamed a local Negro gentleman, Henry Wells, I believe is his name. And so a local town mob came to lynch, basically, Mr. Wells. And so the sheriff kind of hid him out in the Pickens County courthouse. And during the storm, the man that they had blamed for all their troubles, the courthouse getting burned, he looked out at the mob and said, "If you kill me, I'm going to haunt you for the rest of your lives. I'm innocent. I didn't do it." And so while he was looking out at the crowd coming to kill him, lightning struck him and killed him, unfortunately. And then the next day, some townspeople were out and they saw his face in the courthouse window. And they scrubbed it, they cleaned it, they changed the window panes. But no matter what happens, that man's face stayed in the courthouse window to remind the townspeople of the horrible decision they made, trying to kill an innocent man. And here in Moulton, one of our other local ghost stories takes place in Cortland. You expect to see castles and stuff in England and France, but for a while, Lawrence County had its own castle outside of Cortland, the Rocky Hill Castle. Unfortunately, it's demolished now.
Wow.
Some stuff is still standing. I think you can tell where it is. But George or James Saunders, his last name is Saunders. He was from East. Yeah, James Saunders. He was a lawyer. He was trying to impress his new wife. She was a young lady. You could get married young back then. He was, I think, 26. She was 15 or so. So he was really trying to impress her. So build a castle. And so he built her a castle. And they were expensive back then, as they would be now. And the French architect that designed the castle did not get paid. So he was not very happy, the architect, and he on leaving he cursed the castle, curse you, and he died a short time later. And then after that, strange things started happening at Rocky Hill Castle. Bangings on the wall,
Wow.
and mainly weird sounds and stuff that no one could find. They would hear some banging, hear some hammering. They'd run to the room and nothing would be there. And the Saunders family, they sold and repurchased the house many times. One other time when they repurchased the house, this was during the time of the Civil War. The house was built in the 1840s. So some Confederate soldiers had used the house. They had passed away and they were buried in the cemetery on the property. Well, when the Saunders family got the Rocky Hill Castle in their possession again, they reported seeing a female ghost just kind of wafting around. They would see her coming. She'd walk through them on the stair steps. She would never bother them, but she was just there. They tried to talk to her, and she would say quiet things. But what it says in the book, some people believe that the dead Confederate soldiers, one of them had a sweetheart. And so after they died, she died too, and she came to Rocky Hill to look for her long lost lover. So they never figured out who the girl was, but just figured she was attached somehow to the soldiers that died there and got buried on the property. Eventually, they followed her down to the cellar. And I think it was Mrs. Saunders said, if anybody's there, say your name now or hold your peace. And the ghost spoke back to her and said, ma'am, I'm right here. And that was the first time the ghost had really said something directly to one of the Saunders family, and they hightailed it out of there.
Wow.
And so that's a local ghost story right there. And I wish the castle was still in existence. From pictures and drawings, it looks beautiful. So
that's so. The family here is very. We spent a day at church. I went to church with them. I've been having a wonderful time. Their kids are fabulous. I love the godly spirit that they have, that your kids have, your daughter and your son. I was talking with the boy earlier today, and he was just telling me about, we want to glorify God and stuff. And he's only 11 years old.
Yes, sir.
And his desire, his heart for God is just amazing. Their daughter is 16, and her heart for God. What impressed me with their daughter is I was telling, she's wanting to be a missionary, have a missionary spirit. And I was asking her if she ever heard William Borden, and she said, yes, I heard about him. And she has his quotes in her Bible. I believe that she wrote them down. It's no reserve, no retreat, and no regrets. And so if you look up William Borden, he renounced his inheritance from the Borden dairy family to be a missionary. He died before he was ever a missionary to the field. But those three statements have inspired several young people to be missionaries in the past. And so I thank you, family, for being friendly to me, opening up your home and your family, and just had a wonderful, great time.